Authors Over 50, Writing in Life's Sweetest Third. Authors Over 50's weekly podcast celebrates writers and their journeys to publication. Writing after 50 is a whole story on its own, so let's skip to life's sweetest third and talk with authors about their journey from pen to publish. Welcome, I'm Julia Daly, your host, and I invite you to listen to interviews with writers who've achieved their goal of publishing a book just later in life. We've seen award lists for under 30 or under 40, but I've yet to see lists for those who've achieved a significant milestone of their own, launching a new career and publishing their first book after the age of 50. We will hear about these authors' inspirations, struggles, strategies, and the smell of that first book. These writers' journeys inspire me because I'm one of them. My guest today was widowed in 2018, and she is finding this path as another challenge to tackle with all the gusto it took her to start her self-syndicated national newspaper column, Is This You?, which she began 10 years ago. Or writing her books, They Call Me Weener, 55 Giggle Producing Chinwags, and Life After a Death. Hop aboard her widow train and become, as she says, the best dang widow on your block. Of course, she laughs and points out she is the only person on her 1 mile square block in Diamond Valley, Nevada. She even went skydiving for her 65th birthday. Welcome to Authors Over 50, Trina Machachek.
You did it right. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't normally get the names right, so I'm glad I get that one. Thank you, Trina. Our opening question on Authors Over 50, Trina, is always, so what took you so long to write your first book?
I'm thinking that pretty much life just kind of got in the way. When I was like 17, 18, just before I graduated high school, I just sat down and was writing longhand a little book, and I'd leave it on the kitchen table. And I didn't know, but my mom was reading it. And when I would back away for a couple of days, she'd go, "What's next? What's next? What's next?" And so I kind of finished that, and it was a cute little story. And then I got married, and I did a little article about going from city to being a country wife, and sent it into Country Woman magazine, and they sent me $50. I was so excited. And then my husband kind of said, "No, we don't have time for that. We got other things to do." So I put it all away, and for the next 40 years, and worked and worked and worked. And then he got sick, and he got sicker, and I needed something else. And that's when I started my column. It was a long trip, but lots of fun along the way.
Yes. And you are a humorist, Trina. Tell us about how you came up with all the chinwags, as you call them, for your first book.
Don't you just love that word? I just love that word, chinwags. They Call Me Weener is a combination of some of my columns in my column, and I kind of put them together and threw it out there just to see what would happen. And every one of them is something that happens in life. We all have a bazillion things that go on in our life, and that's what I draw from. And I'm always amazed that they just come to me when I sit down, and I really think that my writing is a gift from God, because the words just fall out of my fingers. It's the coolest thing, and I never know how they're going to end, but they just all seem to end at 750 to 800 words. How does that happen? So I'm kind of blessed with it. I like it.
Tell us about your syndicated column and how that came to be.
So when my husband got sick, he had spinal stenosis, blah, blah, blah. And I found that keeping him laughing through all of our married life, but especially when he got sick, was something that kept him going. So I would write something funny, and he would laugh at it. And then one day, we have a tiny newspaper called the Eureka Sentinel, and I think they have like 400 subscribers. And so I called the little editor, a very nice man, and said, "So you want to give it a try?" And he said, "Sure." So I threw a couple at him, and then he liked it, and I kept going. And then I called a couple more newspapers, and they said, "Oh, sure." And it kind of it's grown. It's not huge. I can say that it's coast to coast because I have a paper in California and one in Maine. So, and in between there's like between 12 and 20 that take it every week. And I love to get the feedback from the readers. There are some amazing people in the world. So, and I like it. It's funny. It never ceases to amaze me that I'll write something about. I wrote an article not long ago about finding a pair of pants or seeing a pair of pants in the middle of the road on Highway 50 between here and Reno. And so I wrote about it. And I bet a dozen people said, that happened to me. And guess what I found? And it's like, what are you doing in my head? And that's what's cool about it. And it's funny.
That's very fun. Well, the death of a spouse is no laughing matter, but you seem to inject laughter into even serious situations. Have you always used humor as a way through difficult situations?
I think yes. So when I never considered myself good looking. I'm just when I was in school, I had really bad teeth and really bad hair and really bad face, but I had a really good sense of humor. So I was a class clown, I guess. So from an early age, that humor thing got me through a lot of icky stuff, and it just became who Trina is. So, and then losing a spouse, Jerry, my husband, and I always found funny in whatever we did, whether it be working or playing or fishing or falling down or whatever. And so it's a good outlet. It's a lot better than crying, which you do a lot of when you lose somebody. But you got to stop crying eventually and grab onto that brass ring and just hang on. Don't you think?
I think so. I think you're right about that. I don't think we're given many other choices. You know, you have to choose one or the other when you lose someone who's significant to you.
I've met a lot of people, and everybody's circumstances are different. And I realize that. I have no children. So when Jerry took his last breath, I went, okay. And I think it was a nurse said, so who's coming to get you? And I went, the cheese stands alone. It's just me, you know. But I've met a lot of mostly women who, when their husband dies, they seem to get stuck there, you know, and a lot of times it's because of the kids, you know, and the kids and the grandkids, and that becomes their life, which is an amazing thing. But it's still, don't stop being who you are, and don't get don't stop getting up every day and finding out what in the world's going to happen, you know, because there's some really cool stuff yet to happen, and I'm not finished yet.
I think that's cool. Very inspirational for all of us. Once you knew you had to write the book, how did you proceed?
I was, there's always something bubbling in my brain. Somebody says, what's going on? You go, you don't want to go in there. I'm telling you right now, there's stuff going on in there. But I looked at a few books, not a lot, because my nearest bookstore is 250 miles away. I looked at a couple of books after Jerry died, thinking, well, you know, maybe somebody will tell me what I'm supposed to do, because you kind of get lost and you just kind of float. But I never found the book that I wanted to read. There's a ton of boohoo stories. I don't want a boohoo story. I don't want somebody throwing the Bible at me. I'm a Christian, but don't throw the Bible at me. So I thought, you know, I'm kind of funny, and most everything I went through in the end was kind of funny. So I just sat down, and again, the words just fell out of my fingers. And I had some beta readers who I would send stuff to, and they'd go, more. And that's kind of how I did. And I have a really good friend in Santa Ana, California. She sent me a couple stories about Truman Capote and Harper Lee, and they knew each other when they were kids. And these two stories were about them getting on with their life when something happened. And so in her oh so kind way, she was screaming at me, come on, get up off your butt and do something already. And so I did. It took a while, but once it started, it's just, how cool is it that you can sit down, do something that you really enjoy, and you come out with something in your hands that you hold and you go, holy crap, I did that. That is amazing to me.
It really is. When I print out my novel to proof, I want to put a red pencil to it and not just read it on the computer screen. I always think, wow, there are a lot of words, there are a lot of pages. How did that all come out of my brain?
Absolutely. Yeah, you go. I wrote it and read it and wrote it some more and read it some more. And then I found a wonderful editor in Texas. Thank you very much, Texas. I sent it to her and she sent me back a note that said, this is really good. It's really, really good. And so when she sends stuff back for me to edit and use my red pencil, I started reading it. And the more I read it after she made it prettier, the faster I read it. And I kept thinking, wow, this is good. And then it dawned on me, holy crumb, I wrote this. It really is good. And I hope I never get over that.
Yeah.
Like you said, you get that red pencil out and you go, oh, it's a lot of words.
It's almost like magic, but it's a magical hard work that makes
Yeah,
it happen.
I think though, you say it's hard work. I have never felt that. I'm happy that I've never felt that. If I do, I think that that's the time to stop, throw away what I'm working on, and go back to something that's fun because I'm not in it to work. I'm in it to enjoy it. So
Well,
sorry.
that's a good attitude to have. I think the revising, they say writing is rewriting. I think the revising can get kind of tedious, especially when you're taking editors' ideas and changing it from your first draft. I think that's when sometimes we can get bogged down.
Yeah, yeah. And I found that this editor that I was using, she is such a little spitfire. She wanted to change a bunch of stuff, and I said, no, that's not Trina's work. And she'd go, well, it's the right way. And I go, well, maybe the right way just isn't the right way for me and my readers. And so between the two of us, we kind of we broke her red pencil and used my black pen. But you're right, an editor is a very important part of the process, and I don't know what I'd do without her.
Well, what do you think makes your book different from the others that you read?
So it started out as just my story because it was apparently something that I needed to do. But as it developed more of like a cheerleading thing. So much so that I put in little boxes every so often, like, come on, I know you can do this. Don't worry, I got you. The light that you see at the end of the tunnel isn't a train. Just keep going. And so the biggest thing that this book, I think, of course, I'm supposed to think this. I wrote the dang thing. The biggest thing that I like about the book is that I'm talking to someone who is going through something that was, everybody's different, but a death or even a divorce or a breakup is always something that I want somebody to pat me on the back or to tell me it's going to be okay, and this is why, and this is what's the outcome is. Life is still out there. You're not dead yet. Keep going. So I think that's the biggest thing is that it's more of a go get them, not a so that makes sense.
Yes. Do you have a certain writing routine? Do you write every day? And are you a morning person or a night person?
I do write every day because my column is once a week. And I think I just sent out my 478th column. So I never missed a week, not even the week when Jerry passed away. He died and I went home and wrote the column and sent it out. So I'm very proud of the fact that I've never missed a deadline, never missed a week. So I do write every day. And it's not really a time thing. It's just whenever I sit my little buns down in front of my laptop and stuff starts to happen. And so I'm thinking all the time though. You know, I'll go to lunch with someone, or I'll go out to pick weeds, or do something, and something will happen. I'll go, oh, that is so funny.
Do you have to keep a little notebook to write your thoughts down?
No, no, I'm pretty sure that I've forgotten more than I've written about. In my book, so at the end of the book, it talks about a prayer that I say every day, um, sometime during the day, and I thank God for my past, my present, my future. And so when I think about my past, I try to think of one thing from my past that has happened, and that helps me to write about something. And then the present about something that's going on, and then the future is I can see the door to my future. It's floating out in front of me, and it's this big old weather-beaten wooden door with these huge cast iron hinges that I'm sure my husband made because he was an iron worker. And I can put my hand down, and I can almost touch that door, and I can feel the coolness of the handle. And I go, I just want to see, and I want to open the door, but at the same time I don't, because I want to be surprised. And then I go, thanks God for my past, present, and future. Amen. Pretty cool.
Well, that is very cool. And you're such a visual person that you can see all of that in your head.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, you don't want to go in there.
Tell us about the publishing journey, what challenges you had, and which route you chose to take.
So I'm old enough to remember that when people started talking about self-publishing, it was a taboo. It was forbidden. It was you can't get it any other way. And I have to admit, I still believe that in some ways, but at the same time, there's so many avenues to self-publish that and I tried to get an editor for book several months. I should say years, but it was only months. Trying to get an agent for a book, or to see if I could, get your little foot in that door. I remember sending out manuscripts that were hand typed in boxes to publishing companies. This is way before agents, and they'd always come back. A couple times I got oh, this is nice, but not quite what we wanted. So I finally decided that, Trina, you're never going to get your words out there unless you put them out yourself. So I did. I went on Amazon.com. When Kindle first came out, I got one for Christmas for my husband, and he said, wow, wouldn't that be cool if you had your own book on Kindle? So when that happened, and it had to have been in the early 2000s, I threw some of my columns together just on my laptop, not really knowing what I did, and just downloaded it to Amazon. And it's called Itty Bits Volume 1. And it's still out there, and it still sells one or two every so and so. But then a lot of stuff happened, and then I came up with They Call Me Weener, which is my nickname. And I decided, well, I should use an editor. Found my great editor in Texas, and she downloaded it for me. So, and I have to admit that I knew nothing. I didn't even think about marketing. Marketing was not a word in my vocabulary. I was so full of myself. I thought, I'm going to throw that baby up on Amazon, and it'll go boom, da, and it'll make me $bazillion. That's not how it works. There's a whole other world to marketing, isn't there? So that's what I did on this Life After Death. I use the same editor, but I also use a marketing company to help me do all the stuff that I will never remember. And she told me, her name is Carrie, and she's a delight. She said, don't worry about the marketing if you're only going to do one book a year, which is kind of what I'm thinking about doing. She said, if you're doing more than that, you're going to have to learn all this stuff. But if you're doing one book a year, get a marketing gal and use her. It's a little expensive, but hopefully, knock on wood, it's going to be worth it. And so far, she is leading me down a wonderful path. What do you think?
Well, I think everyone now is having to be on social media so much, and to, interact with our fans or build a community. And I think a lot of authors just want to be sitting in their office writing. We don't want to do all of that.
I just want the fun stuff.
We're having to learn a whole new ball game and
Yeah.
meet those challenges. Have you found any particular publicity that you really think actually worked? Did it push the needle any?
This new book only launched on the 5th of May, so it's kind of new. The fun thing I like to do is to sign books at signings. I've been told that's not how you make money, and I go, but that you got to grow your audience somehow. I have a great audience with my column. I have no idea how many people read it, but I think there's a lot. The social media stuff, I'm not good at social media, but I am on Facebook and I am on Instagram, and I pop in and do stuff every day with them. I haven't found the magical advertising marketing stuff. Have you?
I don't know if what we do, if it works or not. We just have to keep throwing it out there. But with your community already built from your column, are you able to talk to them about your books? Maybe that's your audience.
I do a little bit. I don't want to become an advertiser for myself through my column because it's so much different than what I want. But I do have a tagline at the bottom of my column that says, my books are available online, or email me at Itty by Trina to get me to sign one for you. And I have sold some. So when I go to the post office, I have my little stack of envelopes, and I mail them out media mail. So it's less expensive, and I put them up there, and the gal at the post office says, more books, and I go, yep, I'm making my million on one book at a time. I don't think any of us will ever be J.K. Rowling, but I want to be Trina Machacek, and I want people to read it and laugh. So, and live life. I can't imagine getting up every morning and not really having a direction, because I have no idea what's going to happen every day, but not having a reason to get up just to see what the heck's going to happen. I can't. That's something that is not imaginable to me.
Well, Trina, tell us more about your book, and then read a few paragraphs for us so that we can hear your tone and voice in the book.
Okay, I should say I am just getting to the point of making it into an audiobook. So I have never listened to an audiobook. Shame. So I stopped in.
That's all I do now. I
Is it really?
listen to audiobooks, yes.
So I stopped into the library yesterday to see what all the talk about audiobooks is. And she, the gal there, it's a small library. So she said, well, blah, 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 blah. And so I brought 4 home to, terrible to say, not to listen to, but to see what all is involved in making one. So I have a friend, I live in Eureka, Nevada, and there's a town 70 miles to the east of me called Ely, Nevada, where I went to school and graduated high school. And there's a guy over there that I went to high school with who is a music teacher, and he has a studio and blah, blah. So I called him on Messenger and said, so Kenny, if I come over, will you do my book for me? And he said, yeah, who are you going to read it? And I said, me. Nobody can read my words like me. So that's my next step, is making this an audiobook. So I would love to read you a couple of words and see if you think I can make an audiobook out of this baby. Okay, so when Jerry died, before a long time ago, we decided we'd both be cremated. So when he died, that's what happened. And then it came time to think, what am I going to do with these ashes? We have a plot at a cemetery in town, but I thought, that just doesn't, it's cold. It's pretty up there, but it's not who he was. It's not a good place. And so I thought, and finally this happened. So the last time Jerry had gone hunting, he had gone in search of Chucker with the help of our golden retriever named Boomer. Man, Boomer was an amazing dog. We bought Boomer on a whim at a pet store in Reno years ago. On the way home, he pooped in the car. It was a real boomer. So from that poop and forevermore, he was known as Boomer. Boomer, it turned out, had hip dysplasia, no hip joints. Nobody ever told Boomer that. And he and Jerry were companions for years and hunted and played together until Boomer's final days. When Jerry was diagnosed with spinal stenosis, we talked about he and Boomer were so alike, hard-headed and tough. Neither let the pain they faced diminish their outlook. So when Boomer died, Jerry and I buried him under an enormous tree in our yard. Ever since Boomer was little, he had carried and slept with his little pink stuffed dog, boasting long floppy ears. Naturally, we buried the little pink dog with him. Jerry went out to the hills and found a perfect slab of Nevada rock and carved Boomer's name on it and also put, "He never lost a bird." We laid that above Boomer's resting place. He was about 12 years old when he went to heaven. Yeah, we believe our pets go to heaven. So it came to me, Jerry needed to be with Boomer for all eternity. It had rained for a few days and the ground was ready and I was ready, and I knew Jerry was ready to be laid to rest. I was alone. Our little homestead was quiet and calm. I grabbed my favorite shovel, the one Jerry had used to irrigate the farm every morning and evening for years. Then I began to dig over Boomer's grave. As I dug, I thought of all the things that made Jerry a man. His strength and his laughter, that hard-headedness that built everything that I could see around me, his love of life and his dogs and his cars and his friends and of me. I was angry and sad, and I dug deeper and harder and faster. I laughed as I dug, too. He had taught me how to dig a hole, how to set the shovel on edge to get a square hole, how to set the dirt out of the hole close to the edges so I could easily fill the hole around the post that would surely go into the hole. Pouring out his ashes that day, I filled the hole with his whole life, a silly thread of ashes that was him for 73 years. The earth was moist and smelled good, rich and full of life. Pretty soon, I was a half a shovel handle deep, and something kind of rubbery stopped my progress. I put my shovel in the hole, and it sort of bounced back. I could see something in the hole. It was the ear of Boomer's little dog. Yeah, that was far enough. What do you think?
Wow, that's lovely. That's lovely. For those of us who have our pet children, we just always dread that day when we're going to have to put them to sleep, or when they're old, and then to combine your pet with your husband, I think is a lovely sentiment.
Thanks. Yeah, every time I go out in the yard and walk past, I can see him. I can see Jerry and Boomer playing in the yard, and Boomer could get five tennis balls in his mouth and bring them over. And we had a machine shop in our yard, and Jerry was a one-man machine shop, and Jerry and I ran it for 30 years. And men would come in and they would love to play with Boomer. So Boomer and Jerry together, that's the way it's supposed to be.
That's really, really sweet.
Thanks.
Trina, do you make time to read? Do you read a certain genre?
That I fall down on that. TV is my friend, and music. I like James Patterson. I like the thrillers and stuff. But I do not read. I know that as a writer, the rule is read. So you know what's out there, and you know what people like and I don't fall into that norm. I write what I like to write about, and so far, some people kind of like that. Do you read? I always ask the same question when people, do you read? Because I know that you are into that. So how many books do you read a month, a week, a year?
Well, I think reading feeds us as writers. And even if we're reading out of our genre that we write in, I feel like when I'm riding my bike or riding in the car, I just came back from a book tour over in Mississippi and Louisiana. So I had 10 hours one way to ride in the car. So that's a full audio book. So I listened, I listened to one book on the way over and one book on the way back. And that just makes the trip easier for me. And it's a way that I'm able to keep up with what's going on in our industry.
Huh. See, I'm kind of the opposite. When I get in the car, I turn on either country or 60s music as loud as I can and open the windows and just fly. I do not read as much as I probably should.
Sure.
I don't, and I'm old enough to say I don't think that's going to change.
Well, no, at our age, we're pretty set in our ways sometimes.
Yeah, my feet are kind of tied to the floor just like they have been.
Well, Trina, what advice would you have for our writers over 50? Something maybe that you wish you'd heard when you started writing?
Don't ever stop. I had a lot of roadblocks put in my way, and I think I would have been further along had I not let those roadblocks get in my way. But they did, and you can't and never go back. Just let it fall. Just enjoy the journey. It's because everything is a journey, no matter if it's just a little story or a whole book or anything in between. Never stop and enjoy it all. Kind of fun. What gets you to start to write? That's what I would say. And whatever it is, grab onto it and just write. And write for you. Don't write. Somebody said, "Oh, will you write something for me? Write the way you think about this guy would think." It's like, no, I can't do that. I'm writing for me. So, and if somebody else enjoys it, that's like the icing on the cake. It is so cool.
Trina, I think you are a very positive person, and you've given us a lot to think about today, especially how to handle serious situations with a good attitude and with your humor. And I think you've opened a crack of that door to your future and allowed us to peep in. So we so appreciate you being here today, and I'm so excited that you're now one of our authors over 50.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you for joining us today. Please look for Authors Over 50 every Thursday when we will have conversations with accomplished debut novelists over the age of 50. Please subscribe and share with a friend, and check out my own publication journey after 50 at www.juliadaily, that's DAILY, like dailynewspaper.com. Until next time, keep reading and writing, and remember, it's never too late to fulfill a dream in life's sweetest third.